Hello and welcome back. I'm ShyWizard. Gonna take a look a little further into advanced animals. I've done a video on this in the past. This would be for Farming Simulator 17. You have the advanced animals prefab. I'll put a link in the description to this. I would highly recommend that you download this anyway, even though you can take what you need from this map that I've been made aware of called Lost Land by the Snake, which has the parts I'm going to be taking what I need from and all the rest of it. But I would also recommend to download this as well, because there are some instructions in here that you'll need to refer to increase your num channels for your info layer, and it talks about converting your info layer GRLE to a PNG and then using Giant Editor to create your new GRLE with the increased num channels and all that sort of stuff. And you'll need to do that before you actually go any further with bringing in any further advanced animals, because it works with your navMeshes. You need to increase your num channels for the info layer to then have the capability of painting down more than the standard 4 navMeshes for the vanilla animals. So I've got a Gold Crest Valley edit that I've already done this with. I've already increased my num channels, and I've also converted the info layer GRLE to accept those increased num channels and whatever else for my navMeshes. But I say I would highly recommend you download that, so you've got those instructions and whatever else, and you can refer back to my previous video and all of that stuff. If that doesn't, if the instructions are a little bit confused or whatever else, my other video will possibly shine some light on it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, if we have a look in this Lost Land map, I'll go in the mod desk and have a look through here, so you can see, if we come down to this section, advanced animal types and all the parts to do with that. And we have 4 animals in here: zebu, pony, goat and dog. I'm going to work with the goat. I don't really want to work with the others. I'm just going to work with the goat. But what you will take from what I do with the goat, hopefully, is a direction to work with that will then allow you to actually bring the others in as well. That's the plan anyway. I'm not going to do all of them because it would just take far too long. And once you've done one, the others really are just a repeat of what I'm going to do for the goat. The only thing that will change slightly is how to go about creating your navMeshes and stuff like that. But I'll have a bit of a talk about that, and maybe try and help with some of that as well as we go through it. So I think what I'll do to start with, I'm going to, let's open up the map, this Lost Land map, and we'll have a quick look in here and just see what this is all about. Now, what I would probably say is a couple of different ways to go about this. I'm going to choose one that works for me, but you can go with whichever way you want to do it. Because this already has everything set up for whatever animal you're going to be working with, we'll again take the goat, which is what I'm going to be working with. In the cinemagraph here, the author of the map has created a whole new transform group with the advanced animals called Animal 2. And here we have our pony, goat, zebu and dog. I'm going to work again, like I said, with the goat. So if I click on that, it's going to highlight all of the parts to do with goat. I could export all of this and then re-import it into whatever map I'm going to be working with, but for me, I think that's just going to double up on textures and stuff like that, because these troughs are already in most maps. Certain people may have used different textures and whatever else, but there's no reason why you can't work with those. The triggers and everything are going to be the same. You've got your water trough and your feeding trough and whatever else. So I think to export it from this map and then import it into another one, you're just going to double up on all your textures and stuff like that, and create really long folder structures and whatever. So I'm not going to do it that way, but if you wanted to keep it simple and whatever else, then that's obviously one way of doing it. I'm going to do it, like I say, slightly differently. But I will be taking some of the information from here though, my XML file and whatever else, the path file name to that. Type name obviously needs to be goat. If you're working with the other animals, then you would obviously choose pony or whatever. But yeah, I'm going to just work with what's already in Gold Crest Valley and adapt it to suit the advanced animal that I'm going to be working with. So I'll close this down for now, I think, because I don't really need that anymore. I've already done this a couple of times in testing just to get my head around all of it and whatever else, so I know where everything is, but you might need to have a bit of a look sort of, you know, in the mod desk and in the actual XML files and stuff like that to get your head around where everything is all structured and whatever, but I'll try and walk you through as best I can. So we've got our advanced or our animal scripts in here with the HUDs and whatever, so all I'm going to do is just take that entire folder, copy it over into my root folder of the sample mod map here, and if I go into my maps folder, we've got this character folder which has all of the additional or advanced animals and a few others as well which are running on different scripts. The only one I want here is goat, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the whole folder over. So if I go into my maps folder here, I'm going to copy the whole folder over like so, and then I'm going to open it up and basically remove everything else that I don't need, like so. I think for me that's the easier way of doing it. You could just create the folder character and then just copy goat over, or whatever animal you're going to be working with, or, you know, change your path file names to suit whatever you want to do, you know, create whatever folder structure you want, but it does then mean you will need to change a lot of path file names in scripts and stuff like that to point to whatever folder structure you're going to create. So for simplicity, I would just probably recommend to keep it as it is on this lost land map. There are a couple of different things that I need to change because the way that this lost land map is set up, they've got shaders and shared folders in different places. I want to keep all mine in the root folder here, my shaders and shared folders. So if I actually go into the character folder here for goat and open up any one of these in Giants Editor, I will get an error which will say it can't find tile and mirror shader and dirt normal and some animal ear tags diffuse in various different places. So we'll need to look through those, make sure you go through all of this stuff and just change the path file names, or, you know, create new folders, whatever, to make it all join up together. I'm going to just change path file names to point to different folders, but I'm going to obviously need to bring over some of the missing parts because I haven't got the tile and mirror shader on my map, and I haven't got the animal ear tags diffuse on my map. So if we actually go into there in the maps shader folder on the lost land map, you'll see if we come in here we have this tile and mirror shader, and if I go into my root folder and then shaders, it's not in here. So I need to basically bring that one over like so, and if I then go into my shared folder, I've already got my dirt normal, but I haven't got the animal ear tags, so I need to bring that over like so. And then if I go back into the character folder here, for all of these I'm going to need to change the path file name in Notepad++ to point to where those folders are. So for me, all this is going to be is adding in an extra ... at the beginning of all of these to point back to my shaders and shared folder. So I can do that for all of these in here. I'll just do that really quickly. Some of these I'm probably not going to use, but for now I'll just do it with all of them. And then once we've done all of these, we'll move on to the next section. But I just want to get these done now before we go any deeper into it. So, okay, so now that we've changed all those, if I go into this top one again, you'll see that the errors are now gone, and my goat will be displayed in the Giants Editor session. Fantastic. So that will be the same for all the others, so don't need to do anything more there. So what I'll do then is I'm going to open up the sample mod map here in Giants Editor, and like I said, I've already created an area on this particular map, or if I haven't said it in this take of the video, I've created an area here up by the store on Gold Crest Valley Edit. I've already measured all of this out with the troughs and everything, so I know that everything will fit, trying to keep the video a little bit shorter if possible. Put some trees around it, you know, some mountain rock and stuff like that, make it look like it belongs in the map and whatever else. So we have our area, fantastic. And like I said before, I'm going to work with what I've got already in the map, so I'm not doubling up on loads of different textures and stuff like that. So I'm going to take the sheep husbandry here, and in this particular version it doesn't have a straw plane set up, but on the Lost Land map it does. So just be aware of that, the differences and stuff like that. When you're exporting it from one map and bring it into another, there may be some differences between certain aspects and the user attributes, so you may end up with conflicts. So for me, like I said, this is the best way, I think, to work with what's already in the map that you're editing, and then just add stuff in as you need it, kind of thing. Don't double up on loads of different things that you're not going to ever use. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to make a copy of this sheep husbandry. So I'm literally just going to go left Control and D, make a copy of it, and then I'm going to come up to my attributes window, and in the name I'm just going to change that to goat, so we now have our goat husbandry. And then what I can do is change all of these parts. The navMesh, not going to need that. We can delete that, because making a duplication of the sheep husbandry won't actually make a duplication of the navMesh anyway. So I'm going to delete that because I don't need it. I'm going to create my new one in a minute, well, when we get to it. So what we've got here is our tip triggers, pallet spawner and dirt areas. Exactly the same as the sheep husbandry setup. But if you actually look at where the gizmo is placed, it's 0 to the map on the tip triggers transform group. So I don't want to move that one. What I'm going to need to do is move the individual troughs themselves, which are 0 to the actual trough. So what I'm going to do here is just take these, I'm going to highlight them, make sure I'm in the goat husbandry transform group, because I've done this a couple of times and moved them all over and then realised I was still in the sheep husbandry transform group and had to start all over again. So make sure you're in the right place when you start moving all your troughs and whatever else, if you're going to do it this way. So I'm going to take that one, Control B, which is the interactive placement, and we'll just bring this over. Now, because of the way this is positioned on the map is slightly different to where it is for the sheep husbandry, I'm going to need to rotate all of this around because my triggers are on the wrong side and whatever else. So on my rotate Y, I'm just going to go 180, so it brings it round into the right position. And we'll just kind of line this up somewhere with the fence panels. Not going to worry about it too much for the video, as long as it works and there's not massive clipping and all that sort of stuff, then I'm not going to be too fussed. That looks pretty good there. We'll go over a little bit more maybe. There we go, that'll be fine. So we'll do the same with our water trough. So we'll just come over here. Like I said, I've already measured all this out, so I know it's going to fit. So we'll again Control B and place. Going to need to rotate this on the Y again, 180, just to bring it round so my triggers are on the right side and everything. That doesn't look too bad there actually. Come back this way just a little bit maybe. Bring it in. There we go, perfect, that'll do. Okay, so we've got all of that set up. Now with the when it comes to the pallet spawner area for the goats, these will spawn in wool, and that's the same on the Lost Land map. It will obviously be sheep wool. It will show a sheep on the side of the wool pallet, but you know, you just have to take it as it's wool from goats. That's fine, I'm okay with that. So these are a little bit tricky to set up because it's kind of like a dynamic spawn area, not like you work with the fabric script stuff where you actually have like an actual cube, if you like, or an area which you can actually see physically, which would be your pallet spawn area. This is kind of like set up with attributes, a spawn area of whatever it might be. So you need to work out what your spawn area is and then change your size X and Z to work with that. Now I've already done this many times, so I'm going to cheat a little bit here because I'm going to take a screenshot and basically apply all the attributes to it to put it in the place that I want it to do, because it took me about 10 attempts to get it to work exactly right and not have the pallets spawn inside the fences and stuff like that. So this part will be a little bit of messing around. You'll have to try it many times and change your size and whatever else, your attributes here for your spawn area many times, I would imagine, to get it to work 100% the way you want it to. You might get really lucky and get it first time. I wasn't, and I had to do it many times, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do then is, if I minimize this down, I've got a screenshot, like I say, of what attributes I set up. So we can see those there. I'm going to just put that, this is what I've already done in my testing. So I'm just going to drag that up over to my other screen. So I can just type this in manually. So with the main palette spawner transform group selected, I'm going to just apply those settings. So we've got like so, and then 100 and like so, and it also needs to be again rotated on the Y by 90. And as you can see in here, we've got a spawner area of 6x4, but if I show you the picture that my screenshot here, I've changed this to 4x6, so it's no longer whatever. It's no longer 6x4, it's actually 4x6. I was hoping to show you that, but it won't resize correctly to have them side by side, but that's okay. So we've got our 4x6 in there, that's fine. And you can kind of work with that and check where it's going to be just by moving it on the X and Z in your attributes to work out what it's going to do. But like I say, it was a bit tricky for me. I had to do it many times to get it to spawn the pallets in exactly where I wanted them to be, so I could still get access to them with my wheel loader, shovel loader, whatever, and get the pallet forks under them to then maneuver them out of the area and whatever else. So you might have to just have a bit of a play around with that, but again, you know, that's just part and parcel of it. And as you can see, we've got a pallet spawn area, which then denotes which way it's going to spawn the pallets and all the rest of it, but not going to get into that too deeply because it's just, that is a whole video on of its own, I think. It's a nightmare to work with. Same as the manure heaps, the dynamic manure heaps. I find them really frustrating as well at times because of the way that they spawn the manure into a certain area designated by user attributes. It's a little bit weird how they've done that, but it does work, so you just have to persevere with it and get it working. Okay, so we'll do our dirt areas now again with our main transform group selected here for the dirt areas is 0 to the map, so we don't want to move that one, we want to move the one within it, which is set up against the trough. So again, I'm going to bring this one over, highlight it, Control B, and we'll just place it somewhere where it's close to where I need it to be. And then if I actually look in here, we've got our start width and height, so you need to work with these and just see which way it's all going to work. So obviously it's the wrong way round, so you might need to rotate this. I'm going to rotate it, let's do 180, and then if we go start, width and height, you can see now it's going the right way. So it might be a little bit of just again tweaking attributes to get it to work in the way you want it to. So we'll try and get this as close as possible. Again, for the video I'm not too fussed. So if we do width, how close is that? Don't want it too close because I want to be able to get my shovel under it and whatever else to pick it up. So if we just move it in a little bit closer, width, that'll be fine. And then height, somewhere over here. Now again, this is using the same trough that's for the sheep, so there's no reason that you would need to maneuver too many of these individually. Just work with the main one and the rest will then follow suit and kind of work in with it. So again, it can be a little bit of, you know, experimentation, moving your gizmo around with the different attributes here or the different transform groups to get it how you want it to work and the rest of it. If you're using animal table manners, I think it's called, the mod, you will still need to set this up. I found that in previous testing, if you don't set this up in a specific manner, it will cause a conflict. It still needs to be set up because the engine will still try to spawn the grass or whatever it is, and then the script overrides it, but the script won't override it until it actually then works to start with, if that makes sense. So you still need to set this up to a degree, and then the animal table manners script will then sort of call it a null, if you know what I mean, and then delete it already for you. But okay, so now that we've got all that set up, I'm going to change my type name from sheep to goat, because that's what we're working with here in this particular instance. I can close this picture down now because I don't need that anymore. The water trough should be pretty straightforward. Don't need to change anything there. That's already done, and we've got no extra parts to do with that. So what I need to do now then is go back into the Lost Land map, and we'll need to take the XML file path file name from here. I probably recommend that you do the same, so that it keeps everything in the right order and whatever else, so it's pointing to the right folders. Otherwise you may find that it won't find the XML correctly or whatever and get a bit confusing. So if we highlight the goat husbandry on the Lost Land map, got an XML file, and I'm just going to literally highlight all of that information there, the path file name to that goat animal husbandry XML. I'm going to copy that. We'll just minimize this for now. Go into our other one, the sample mod map, click on the goat husbandry and override the Giants version of this with that version. If we look in there, you can see we've got maps, character, goat animal husbandry.xml. And because I've already brought over the character folder with the goat stuff in it, that XML will be in there as well, which is why I copied it over the way I did. So we've now got all of that in there as well. Fantastic. So I'll close down the other one now because I don't need this open anymore. I've just kept it open just in case it didn't work the first time. Sometimes when you copy and paste stuff, it can sometimes get a bit screwy, so till you've got it right, just keep it open there maybe. But now we've got that in there and it's all locked in and whatever, that's perfectly fine. Don't need to change anything else here, that's all good as well. So we've got all of our tip triggers set up, the pallet spawner stuff, dirty areas, whatever. So now it's going to be basically getting into navMeshes. So I'm going to go ahead and save first, because I don't want this to suddenly cause Giants to crash on me when I've got this far. So I'm going to save the map there, and then we'll do the navMesh in a minute when this is finished shaving. So now that I've saved the map, I can continue with the navMesh setup. So try and talk a little bit about navMeshes best I can here. I think it's a little bit of a misconception that navMeshes have to be set up a specific way, with each individual number being whatever it's related to a specific animal. Now, obviously the way that Giants have set this up, if they were to try and do this where, give you information where you can choose whatever info channel you want for whatever animal, it would get very confusing very quickly. So they've kind of given us a basis to follow, if you like. So if I remember off the top of my head, 0 for cows, I'm going to say 1 is for sheep, 2 is for chicken, and 3 is for pig. I don't remember if that's exactly right or not, but that's just to keep everybody on the same page, if you like. So every map follows the same kind of arrangement for the animals. But that doesn't have to be the fact. You can set these up however you want them to be set up. So if you are creating a map, for example, and you haven't set up your navMeshes yet, and obviously because this is a Gold Crest Valley edit, these are already set up on it. But if I was creating a map from scratch, and I was creating my navMeshes on whatever map I was creating, in theory I could actually set my sheep up under whatever number I wanted to be. So let's say 0 is for cows, as the standard reference. If I wanted to, I could set my sheep navMesh up under 0 and then put my cows under 1, 2, 3, whatever. So when it comes to navMeshes, don't get confused by the info channels. You can choose whatever info channel you want it to be. It's just a case of joining whatever info channel here you select to the info channel that you select within your Create navMesh window. As long as those two join up, then it will work. It's not really relevant to a specific animal. You can choose whatever one you want to apply to whatever animal. I would probably suggest to keep everything as far as the vanilla animals, so it doesn't get too confusing. Keep them as the standard setup. Apologies for the phone. So keep whatever they are as standard, as Giants have suggested us to put them as. But when it comes to the advanced animals, you can choose whatever you want it to be. So, like in my previous video when I worked with cows too, I set that up as info channel 4. Because I'm not working with any other advanced animals on this particular version of the sample mod map, I'm going to use the same channel. I'm going to use 4 again, but in this particular case for goats. So, don't get locked into the fact that each info channel number has to be a specific animal. The actual navMesh is not really relevant to whatever animal you're applying it to. It's just a navMesh for the animals to walk around on. They're not directly linked, they're kind of indirectly linked, but they're linked through the actual user attributes to the navMesh in the Cinegraph. So when you create your navMesh and you apply it to the main transform group for the animal that you're working with, that navMesh is designated by the navMesh index in your user attributes, not by what animal it actually is. I hope that makes sense. It's a little bit difficult to explain, but I think we'll move on because I'm going to get I think the more I try and talk about that, it's going to get more confusing. But have an experiment with it. Just get a blank map and try and create a navMesh for cows, but don't use 0. Use, say, for example, 1, 2, or 3, and then create your navMesh for cows under a different number. Use the same radius as of 1.2 for your cow, but choose a different info channel and just experiment with it and see what you can come up with, because I think it can be, we can get locked into a certain set of rules, and those rules aren't really, there's no actual, they're not locked in, if you know what I mean. You can choose whatever info channel you want for whatever animal you want. Anyway, so let's move on, because like I said, I'm going to confuse the hell out of everybody, I think, if I try to go into it any deeper, because I'm not explaining it the best, I must admit. So we'll create our navMesh for goats. Like I said, I'm going to choose channel 4. So I'm going to go up to my terrain info layer paint mode, like so. I like to use the square brush when working with the info layer. It just makes it a little bit easier to paint down, in my opinion. So I'm just literally going to put this down on the map. I need to first of all change my brush over to add, and I'm just going to paint it down like so. Again, I'm not too fussed about where it's going to be, as long as it's in the area I'm going to have my goats. That's good enough for the video. Like so. And we'll just close that in. There we go, like so. Perfect. Okay, so now that I've got that into there, going back to what I just said about info channels, because I've chosen info channel 4 here, when I go to create my new navMesh, and I am creating a completely new one, I'm not recreating one or editing one, I'm creating a completely new one. So must make sure when you're creating your navMesh you actually click create and not recreate. If you were editing a navMesh, then you would use recreate. So for my radius here, I'm going to use 0.8 for the goats. Again, that you can guess. This is what I've done. I've taken a bit of a guess. 0.8 would be about the right sort of radius for goats. 1.2 is for cows. I forget what the others are. I forget what they are. But anyway, I'm going to go with 0.8. You might want to increase that or decrease that and experiment with a little bit, but 0.8 seemed to work really well for me, so that's what I'm going to go with. Culling info layers, again, this must match what you've put down in your info layer painting here. So I've chosen info channel 4, so I'm going to go into this little ... thing which brings up my cull layer channels, which matches what these are. Deselect 0, select 4 and click OK. Now those match and I can click create, and it's now created my new navMesh. But at the moment, all it is, if I click off of that, all it is just a navMesh. It's not assigned to anything. So as it is at the bottom here of the cinegraph, it will not work. It won't do anything because it requires the index in our user attributes to point to that navMesh to then link it together to make it work. So I'm going to go Control X, go back up to my goat husbandry and go Control V. And like I showed before, if we go back into the goat husbandry main transform group here, the navMesh index is 0, and if I click on it where it is at the moment, the index is 3, which is the last number in the index path. So what I need to do is actually right click it and go move up until it is at 0, which is just below the actual main transform group. So now if I click on it, it's actually showing the last number there is 0, which matches my navMesh index here of 0. So that's how they all join together. So what I can do here is go into there and just type in there goat, hit tab, lock in the change. So now I have my new navMesh, which is for goats, all linked in with the user attributes in our goat husbandry transform group. Fantastic. So all the other parts are all linked together and everything else. We've got all that set up and what have you. So we're pretty good. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go ahead and save again. Okay, so what I'm going to do now then is I've saved the map and we've got everything on the map itself set up exactly how I want it to be. I can go ahead and close that down now. So what I need to do next then is obviously bring over some other parts, because at the moment my mod desk is completely empty. And as you can see, this is just literally a sample mod map of Gold Crest Valley. Nothing special in here at the moment. Well, actually there's nothing in here at all. So I'm going to minimize that one down and I'm going to go over into the mod desk for the Lost Land map, and you can see here author the Snake, so credits to the Snake and whoever was involved obviously putting all this together. I would imagine Farmer Andy, Kevin K, 98 and some other people, so credits to all of those guys as well. So if we come down to our advanced animal types down the bottom here, obviously the only part that I want is goat, but to save me having to copy over individual lines and stuff like that, I'm literally going to take the entire lot here. I'm going to copy that, come over, and below my multiplayer support is true, I'm going to create several lines and we'll paste this down the bottom here. I'm going to bring that back over, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the zebu and the pony, and then I'm going to delete the dog and just be left with my goat. And obviously the HUD directory for your animals and the store directory, we've already done all that stuff here by copying over the entire animal scripts folder, which has got all the bits and pieces in there. There are some additional ones in here for the other animals, but that's fine. They're not going to interfere with anything. We'll just leave them as they are. That's perfectly fine. So yeah, there may be some changes you'll want to play around with this as well, but we'll have a look at that in a little minute when we get to it. This stuff here, the young animals data, I played around with that for a little bit and decided it wasn't of any relevance to me. I'm not going to work with any of that stuff. You can have a play around with that if you want to. I'm just going to work with the advanced animals types section here and change what I need to change in these attributes here to make it work the way I want it to work. But if you want to bring that over, this stuff here, and then play around with that stuff for your young animals and the childbirth rate and all that sort of stuff, by all means have at it. But like I said, I'm not going to work with any of that stuff. I'm just going to work with the actual advanced animal types section, and then change the parts in there to get what I want out of it. So we need to obviously bring over, let's have a look, we need to bring over the scripts. There's only 2 scripts in here that I need, but again, just so I can bring the tags over and everything, I'm going to highlight the entire section. We'll copy that, and I'll make a couple lines below this, paste that in. The only ones I need are the advanced animal table and the advanced animal types, so the others I can delete, so we'll do so. Don't need any of those, don't need any of those. That's the only 2 scripts I'm going to be working with in this particular case. So we'll just close that in a little bit. There we go. And then I need to bring over some other parts here, which is to do with the UI, to do with our husbandry for the goats. So if we come up to this section here, you can see advanced animal types, and you've got the zebu, pony, goat. Not sure where the dog is in amongst all this stuff, but that's fine. The one I'm going to be working with here is obviously goats, so I'm just going to literally take what I need from there. So we'll copy this section. If you were working with any of the other animals or all of them, then you'll need all of this, but like I said, I'm just working with the goat in this case. So I'm going to make a copy of that section, and we'll paste that in up here like so. And if you wanted to, you could obviously bring over the tag as well there, so it gives you a separation of your information in your L10N, which we'll need to create as well. So just make a new line there. So I'm just going to go, whoops, always does that to me. L10N, close, make a copy of that, put it down the bottom here, and then put my slash in there to close it off. Now that is a L10N closed off start tag, end tag, all the bits and pieces I need in there. Fantastic. So I can close that down as well, and we'll do the same. Whoops. See what I mean? It hates me. So we'll just close all that down as well. There we go. Makes it look a little bit tidier. Okay, so we can go ahead and save that. Okay, so now that I've saved the map and everything else, we've got a navMesh put down and whatever. A couple more things that we need to do here. First of all is the actual loading trigger, because obviously at the moment we don't have any way of purchasing the goats at all. We need some sort of trigger that we can interact with to then purchase them. So we've got our animal loading triggers. These are for our standard in-game cows and obviously the dealer. So if you want to set up a trailer, which I will be looking into doing a video on how to make a trailer for, additional animals and whatever else, advanced animals, whatever you want to call them. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically show you what you need to add in. So in the animal loading trigger for the dealer, if we click on that in our user attributes here, we've got our pig, sheep, cow. Obviously chickens aren't purchasable as standard. So you need to come into here, put a space, and then type in goat. And obviously if you're working with zebu or dog or whatever else, you'd need to put that into there, whatever animal type you're going to be working with. Like I said, I'm working with goats, so I'm going to type that into there. Hit tab, lock in the change. It's always worth just clicking off it and re-clicking it again just to make sure it did actually accept what you entered in there. That's fine. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the animal loading trigger for sheep, Control D, and make a copy of it. And then I'm going to highlight it in the scene graph here, and in my attributes for the name itself, just going to come into here, delete sheep, and then type in goat, hit tab, make the change. And then for our animal type in here, I'm just going to change that to goat, like so. Now obviously, because we're setting up goats, and I've used the animal loading trigger for sheep, in the actual user attributes here, we have a title which is animals underscore sheep pasture. Now what this is actually referring to is your map01.xml in here. So we have animals sheep pasture, and that's what that information is referring to there. Now if you wanted to, you could set up some sort of icon on your PDA and then create a new entry for your hotspot within here and whatever else, and then just change this over so it's instead of animals underscore sheep pasture, you would perhaps maybe have goat pasture in there, and then basically type that into here in your new hotspot, and then reference the name, whatever your name you're going to be putting in here, reference that against your mod desk. I'm not going to do any of that stuff because I'm not really that bothered with it, so I would probably just leave that as it is. If I wanted to, I could actually change that, so I could type in there goat pasture, just so I know that it's not, it separates it from everything else. But I'm not going to mess about with any of that stuff. You can do that if you want to, but I'm not going to do it in this particular video. So we've now set up our animal loading dealer to accept goats, or so we can actually purchase and sell our goats at the dealer. And we've also set up our trigger as far as the user attributes, but obviously now I need to move it over to an area where it's going to be relevant to goats. So I'm going to literally come into here. I've got a gate here which I'm going to be taking as my purchase point, so I'm going to highlight the actual animal loading trigger in the scene graph here, Control B, and click on the map. Now this particular trigger, the way it's been set up, is invisible, so you need to come into your attributes here and then click on visibility, and you will then be able to see the cube if you're doing it the same way I'm doing it, and then just move it wherever you need to move it to, relevant to however you set up your particular pasture for the goats. So I'm just going to do something like that. That's fine, and then I'm just going to click off the visibility again so we can't see it in game, otherwise you'll have this big grey box showing up in game. So that's fine, no problem. Okay, so now we have an area relevant to the goat pasture where we can actually come over and purchase our goats. And if we get down the road of actually creating a trailer, this is where we will actually put our trailer to obviously unload our goats into the goat pasture and all the rest of it. Okay, so now that we've all got that set up and whatever else, we can basically go ahead and save again, and then we'll get into game and we'll purchase some goats, get some feed up together and whatever else, make sure the triggers are working and whatever, and we'll have a look in the animals menu and just see what we get from there. Okay, so in game now, and you can see obviously we have our goat pasture here, we have our troughs for the feed and the water and whatever else. I've just got some bits and pieces together, so I've got tractor with some wheat in, some water, some silage bales and some hay bales. But obviously what I want to do first of all is buy some goats, so I know where I put the trigger. If you were possibly building a map, you might want to put down some markers on the ground so everybody knows where everything is and all the rest of it, but I'm not going to do that for the video. So I'm going to come into the trigger. You can always go into your F1 menu here, and it shows press R to open animal dialog, exactly the same as any of the vanilla animals. So we press R, we have our HUD come up for goat, £4,000 each, in my case pounds. So I'm just going to buy, what I'm going to do actually, I want to just test something. So let's buy 4. If we click OK, yes, and we can then see what that does, and you can now see that we do actually have goats in our pasture, or walking around and whatever else. Now the reason why I've done this, because I want to go into the escape menu here, go around to my animals, with our pig, sheep and cow. If we scroll across, we now have our goats. Fantastic. So we have 4 in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the fast forward mod here just to speed up time a little bit. Now this may not show up anything just yet because obviously I haven't given them any food or anything, but I just want to see what it does for all these other parts. So cleanliness, so it is catching up with it somewhat. So I think now if we actually give them some food, because I'm curious to see with my settings what the reproduction rate will be for just 4 goats, because when I did this in my testing 100 with 100 goats, I had a reproduction rate of 1 every 20 hours approximately. So I just want to see what this is going to do with only 4, because if it's like going to be a year before I get a goat, that might not be quite appropriate. So here I've got 2 hay bales. Just want to test the actual bale trigger on the trough, make sure that works. There's one. Might only take the one. Yes, it did. That's fine. I'm okay with that. So we've got full up on the hay. So if we just dump that one off there. Silage and hay is in the same one, so we don't need to worry about that. I haven't got any grass bales, so I'm not going to worry about those. We'll do the wheat and barley, so we can just test that. So we'll come over, jump into this tractor here, and we'll test that this works. Obviously it all goes in the same trough, but that's okay. So we'll just come over, get our trigger, press I, and we'll dump in that, go back in, and you can see now we have our wheat or barley showing up there. Fantastic. And it gives us our information that we've got enough feed of whatever for maximum of 6 days. That's fine. So we can dump that one off, and then we will grab our water bowser here and just put some water in the trough. And obviously if you give them more of whatever, then their productivity is going to increase. I'm missing a couple of things. Well, grass. So our water's going in and our fill plane is coming up perfectly fine. And obviously, like I said, I've only got 4 goats at the moment, so not taking a massive amount of each of the products. The more I get, the more they will require, but I just wanted to see with 4 goats what their reproductive rate will be. So obviously I'm missing grass, but that's okay. So again, we'll just speed up time a little bit until we get some information show up. There we go. So you can see with 4 goats, my reproduction rate is 774 hours, whatever that will equate to. So, you know, again, like I said before, you'll need to have a bit of a play around with the numbers in the mod desk, because if you can only afford to buy X amount of goats, 4 goats, then, you know, they're not going to reproduce very, very quickly. Now obviously that's going to be in relation again to how much food they use. So with only 4 goats, they won't use very much food. So it's all relative at the end of the day. But, you know, if you want to speed things along a little bit, then you may need to change those numbers. So you'll get, you know, your reproduction rate will be a lot less. But for me, I'm okay with that. You know, that might be a little bit too high, but I would just get a bit more money up together and buy more goats, pretty much. So if we just come in here again, and I'll just up this to, let's say, 50, like so, and we'll check our reproduction rate now. Might need to just speed up time again just to, and there we go. So with 50, it's down to 61.5 hours. So, you know, it's coming down quite nicely. That's pretty good. And then if we up this to 100, and we'll just speed up time again a little bit, and it's down to 30 hours. So, you know, changing that number in the mod desk obviously is going to affect your reproduction rate and all the rest of it, and what food you give them, and then whatever else. But the more you get, obviously they will go through their food and water much quicker and what have you. So it's going to be a little bit of experimentation to get the numbers exactly where you want them to be, and all the rest of it. But for me, I'm happy with the way I've set it up. I wouldn't expect to get a massive amount on reproduction if I only had 4 goats. You know, the more you buy, the more you get back, I guess. So, and again with our dirt areas numbers and all that sort of stuff, I think, you know, for what I've set it up as, we're not getting massive amounts of, you know, grass thrown out. So again, I'm quite happy that 6 was far too high for me with not very many goats. I had a massive great pile after like 4 hours. The pile of grass on the dirty area here was like huge. So, you know, that wasn't really working for me. And you can see we have our wool pallets spawn in there. And I'm not sure if I've actually gone through all of my food already, but these will kind of spawn in and a maximum, so you'll get like one there, one here, and then one here. I think there's 3 rows of 2, so yeah, that for me in that small area was pretty good. Worked out quite nicely the way I set it up there. So all of this sort of stuff, you will need to have a bit of a play around with the numbers and all the rest of it to get it to work the way you want it to for your playstyle and whatever else. But they are working. You know, we have goats in the map at the moment. They're eating, I think, yeah, but they do move around. This one's moving around. There's sounds and all the rest of it. So I think they look pretty good, actually. I'm really impressed with it. So like I said before, I've been waiting for a little while now for somebody to actually create the extra animated animals other than the vanilla ones, so we had something else to work with. Yeah, I'm really impressed with it. So there we go. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.